June Franklin appeared to live a quiet, simple life in her garden flat in London. But for the heir hunters, the pressure is on to solve her case.
Yet again, no reply. I'm starting to run out of time now, so on to the next one.
And the investigation into another estate starts with seaside stories on the scenic Isle of Wight.
She was like a racing driver. My husband would see her coming down the road and he used to say, "Hold tight, here comes Hazel."
It's all part of an heir hunter's daily challenge. Coming up, the hidden dangers faced by battleship dock workers.
HMS Vanguard just suddenly exploded and killed her entire crew of 804 men.
And we uncover a story of heroic firefighting in the Blitz.
Because everything was in such chaos to begin with, just went from fire to fire. There were crews who left on the 7th of September in the evening and never went back for 5 days.
In the London offices of heir hunting company Fraser & Fraser, manager Mike Pow and the team are hard at work on the case of June Franklin. They started work on it 6 months ago, but it's now become an urgent priority.
When it first came to us, this case, we didn't believe it had a huge amount of value. However, after about 6 months, some new information has come to light, which looks like the estate would probably be in the region of about £50,000. So we've picked the file up again, had another look, and are now discovered that she may have a huge amount of aunties and uncles, and it's going to be a lot of work for us to sort this one out.
June Isabel Franklin lived in a basement flat in this house in Kensington, London, for over 30 years. Although very little is known of her and there are no surviving photographs, neighbour Stephen Leveridge was a friend.
I first met June about a month after I moved in here. Straight away she struck me as a person that liked to be on her own and very private.
Over the years, Stephen got to know June a little.
I think she was a well-read person because the way she spoke. And when she came up here for a cup of tea, which was very, very seldom, she would speak about watercolours and she'd speak about other parts of the world.
And it seems June took great pleasure from the birds who'd visit her garden.
My bedroom being at the back, every morning I'd look out. The birds would be perched on the tree waiting for June to come out. That reassured you that she was okay.
But one morning, Stephen noticed that June hadn't been out to feed the birds.
2 days later, still hadn't seen any birds. Something strange. So I went down and I knocked on the door. No answer. No. One had a feeling something was wrong. And so I called the police, and then they came out and said, "Well, I'm very, very sorry that the lady inside has passed away." I still look out of my window, but you don't see any birds, you don't see any squirrels. They're gone. They've gone with her. No, she's a very, very nice lady and missed, especially by myself.
June died on the 11th of December 2010, aged 91, with no known family and without leaving a will. So it's up to Mike and the team to track down heirs to her estimated £50,000 estate. Since first starting work on the case 6 months ago, they've made some progress with the tree.
At the moment, this is where we have the deceased, who was never married and didn't have any children. First, we looked at the near kin and found her sister Joyce, who also died a spinster. And as you can see, we then had to go back on the mother and father side of the family. The mother's being this side, and she's got about 9 siblings.
With so many aunts and uncles, and any descendants of theirs to trace, researcher Joe has got his work cut out.
I'm looking at the paternal side of the tree at the minute, which is made up of 9 stems, 9 family members. We're currently looking at, Shannon's looking at the maternal side, of which there is 10 stems, 10 family members to look at. So it's almost 20 family members overall we've had to look into. And I'm currently focusing on one of the family members on the paternal side at the minute.
The team have established that June's father was Arthur John Franklin, one of 10 children born to Frederick Franklin and Grace Harding. It's a lot of work, and Mike's approach so far has been to divide and conquer.
Because we've got quite a few people on it, it makes it a little bit easier, whereas if only 2 people doing it, it'd be a lot more difficult.
While Joe carries on researching one of June's aunts, Mike follows up on a potential heir.
Paternal cousin once removed of a deceased. However, whether she has any, or he has any knowledge of deceased is going to be remote, as the link to him was born in 1888. He's born in 1952, so it's very, very remote that he's going to know anything about his great aunties and uncles as the family stretches back so far. I don't think anyone's at home today.
Mike has had no luck contacting that potential heir, but researcher Isha has managed to trace a key family member on June's father's side, one of his sisters, Grace Mary Franklin.
She's born Hastings and she's living in Cheshire. She's nowhere near Hastings, but luckily she was living with her mum, so I was able to pick that one out. Otherwise, I probably would have skipped past it.
Grace was June's aunt, who died in 1945. However, Isha has managed to trace one of her descendants.
I've got a phone number for one of Grace's grandchildren, but whether or not they'll know anything, it's hard to tell.
Mike wastes no time in following up Isha's lead and immediately tries to contact this grandchild, who would be June's first cousin once removed, and a potential heir. But it seems he's not in luck.
My name's Michael Powell. No, it's nothing to worry about. We're a company who specialise in tracing missing heirs and beneficiaries. Thank you very much for your time. No one's at home today. Well, what I'll do is I'll send out a letter to them tonight in the post, and seeing how we are regarding travellers, I'll get someone to go around there tomorrow to see if they can make contact with her that way.
Although Mike has had no luck in contacting potential heirs so far today, all is not lost. He's got one more to try. Another first cousin once removed on June's father's side.
Good afternoon. I'm trying to locate the son of a Hazel Phyllis Franklin and an Edward Byrne. If you are this person, please could you give me a call?
Once again, Mike has to leave a message explaining who he's trying to get hold of and their connection to June.
Thank you very much for your time. So yeah, everyone's out in the weather today by the looks of it.
Despite all of the team's hard work, by late afternoon, they're still a long way from solving the case.
After today, we've had a moderately successful day in the fact that we found some beneficiaries. However, we haven't been able to get in contact with them, and I've managed to leave a few messages on phone numbers, but no one's rung back as of yet. So we've sent them letters, and hopefully we'll get someone to see them tomorrow. But they are all cousins once removed of the deceased. Be very, very surprised if there are any cousins living, because all the uncles and aunties deceased were born in the mid to late 1800s. The family is very, very old, and we're coming down a lot of generations before a living heir is found. So hopefully someone will be able to get onto them tomorrow, and then we can take it from there.
And as the search continues, there's more frustration out on the road.
There's no reply at the address, and I can't confirm that she lives there, so I'm going to ring the office now and see if they can do a little bit of research.
Heir hunters take on cases from a number of different sources. Sometimes a concerned neighbour or friend of someone who's died, seemingly without leaving a will and with no known family, contacts the team. This is known as a private referral. In November 2013, Daniel Curran, boss of London-based firm Finders, was alerted to the case of Hazel Murgatroyd.
Although the case was referred to us privately, we can't always be sure that any particular person or company hasn't referred the case to several of our competitors as well. So where there's any doubt, we'll always try and complete the research as if it were competitive.
Although this meant the team needed to work on the case as a matter of urgency, there was still an important first step that they couldn't ignore.
Before we start a case, it's always good to get an approximate idea of the value of the estate so we can judge the level of resources and the level of investment if we're going to fund the investigation ourselves. It's not always possible, so sometimes we just have to speculate and hope that the estate is worthwhile in value in the end.
Former civil servant Hazel Rosemary Murgatroyd was born in Kent in 1941 and retired to this bungalow on the picturesque Isle of Wight. Gloria Halliwell and her husband Ken were neighbours.
We'd been on the island for about 2 months, and we come face to face with Hazel in Newport, and my husband Ken introduced us.
The initial meeting had seemed like a promising introduction to their new neighbour.
She was quite a tall lady, and I found her talkative for the few minutes that we were together. But then there was no acknowledgement after that. She seemed to be a very private person.
But it appears Hazel did have at least one passion, which her neighbours couldn't help but notice.
Hazel had a car. She had her own personal number plate. She was like a racing driver. My husband would see her coming down the road and he used to say, "Hold tight, here comes Hazel." She used to be dressed same things, summer or winter. The only thing that changed in the summer, she used to bring out this white hat and she would put that on. But other than that, she was always dressed as though it was really cold.
Gloria and her husband knew Hazel for over 12 years. Although independent, she did sometimes ask her neighbours for a little help.
Hazel gave me the shopping list, but it was all sweet stuff, some very soft, nothing substantial. And we did have a laugh because on the list was fun-sized bananas.
At the time of Hazel's death on the 27th of June 2012, her neighbours knew no more about her life or any potential family. It was now up to Daniel and the team to piece together the puzzle of Hazel's estate. From land registry records, they'd already been able to establish that Hazel had owned her own home. They were also able to establish that she'd never married or had any children, and having done that, the hunt was on for any brothers and sisters she might have had. Using the information on Hazel's birth certificate, the heir hunters were able to trace her parents' marriage.
We found out that Hazel's parents married quite some time before her birth, about 9 years before her birth. Sometimes when we find the marriage of the parents a number of years before the birth of the deceased, a gap such as in Hazel's case, a gap of 9 years might imply that there are further siblings to Hazel. However, in this case, we found out and confirmed later on with relatives that Hazel was referred to as a blessing, in that her parents had virtually given up the prospect of having children when Hazel was born.
Maurice Arthur Murgatroyd married Maud Hannah Wright in September 1932, and Hazel was born in April 1941, in the midst of World War II. At the time, her father Maurice was very involved in the home front. The Auxiliary Fire Service, or AFS, was first formed in 1938 as part of Britain's Civil Air Defence. Initially, recruits like Maurice were part-time, unpaid volunteers, and their role was to supplement the work of local professional fire brigades.
People came from all walks of life and all classes. You got bakers, librarians, musicians, people in show business, people who'd been to public school. Huge mix.
2 days before the Second World War was declared, 89,000 men and 6,000 women were mobilised across the country for full-time service in the AFS. But during the first few months of the war, known as the Phony War because nothing seemed to be happening, all this preparation seemed worse than pointless.
The Auxiliary Fire Service were very unpopular with the public. They became a target, really, I suppose, for people's frustration. Particularly after Dunkirk, when morale was quite low, they were actually attacked in the street very often. They had tomatoes and things thrown at them.
But for Maurice and other recent recruits, all that was about to change.
On the 7th of September 1940, of course, almost a year to the day after the outbreak of war, the London Blitz began. It was a very sunny September afternoon, and about 4:30, an armada of planes made its way up the Thames. They began bombing on both sides of the river, the docks, warehouses, factories, and at one stage, all along the Thames from Beckton to Tower Bridge was on fire. Famously, a fire watcher on the roof of St Paul's Cathedral said at one stage, "It must be the end of the world."
The intensive bombing of London by the German Luftwaffe continued for 8 months. It was a determined effort to destroy the capital and demoralise Britain to the point of surrender. The bombing always came in 2 waves.
The first would be mostly incendiaries, which would set light to things and also have the emergency services out working. These huge fires also would light up key targets for them to come back later when they drop their high explosives. Among those working outside, which again accounts for the deaths of so many auxiliary firemen.
During the first 22 nights of London air raids, Morris and his fellow firefighters fought nearly 10,000 fires, and their heroism was never in question again. Hazel would have been barely a month old while her father was risking his life.
Once the Blitz began, as a driver, he would have been out almost every night, as were most of them, fighting fires in Docklands or wherever he was directed to go. He would have been working long hours. I mean, on that first night, 7th of September, some of them worked for 18 hours without food or sleep. He would have been wet through by the time he came back. And remember, it was through the autumn, winter and spring, which was very cold nights. Very difficult to dry their uniforms. They only had one uniform. So often you were going out the next night in damp uniform, and people became ill. They weren't the healthiest of people.
Even so, Hazel's father and his fellow firemen would have had to have extraordinary reserves of stamina.
Because everything was in such chaos to begin with, just went from fire to fire, and there's certainly one that I know of that left on the 7th of September in the evening into the city and never went back for 5 days. They slept on the engines because, of course, the fires that were started on the first night were more or less under control, but you still had damping down and so on. And while you were doing that, they came back the next night and the next and the next. So you just went from one thing to another, grabbing sleep and food where you could.
The Blitz ended in May 1941, but the AFS continued to firefight alongside their regular colleagues throughout the remainder of the war and into peacetime. But as the fire service became nationalised and fully professional, the AFS was gradually phased out, until in 1968 it was officially disbanded.
What is impressive to me today is the sense of responsibility they had to their community and especially to their comrades. For me, I think what is so incredible about the Auxiliary Fire Service is the fact that it's ordinary people doing an extraordinary job.
Morris survived the war, and Hazel proved to be her parents' only child. This meant the team had to expand their search to look for possible aunts and uncles.
We established that Hazel's mother's maiden name was Wright, which is a very common name. So our initial focus moved to the Murgatroyd family being less common.
Hazel's father, Morris, died in 1966, but it was his 1903 birth date that gave the air hunters the boost they needed to unlock his side of the family.
This luckily gives us access to the 1911 census where he could be mentioned as a 7 or 8 year old boy. We found that Hazel's paternal grandparents had several children, but they were young enough to have further children after the 1911 census.
The team discovered that in fact Hazel's grandparents had a total of 10 children, including her father Morris. They got to work on all 9 branches of the family tree and came across an early stumbling block.
One of the deceased paternal aunts was named Alina or Alma May Murgatroyd, and she presented some difficulties in that we couldn't find any obvious marriage or death record for her. We were suspecting she may have emigrated. Eventually it transpired that she married at age 90, which is very unusual. So, having used her husband's surname, we then were able to establish her death and the fact that that branch of the family died out.
And research into one of Morris's sisters yielded some particularly useful results.
The stem of Yvonne Murgatroyd was quite a key one for us in that she was the one that married Mr. Rigg that led us to her son Malcolm who we were able to compare and contrast our family trees with to confirm that we'd found all the correct family and the correct heirs.
Hazel's cousin Malcolm is a keen genealogist who has carried out his own extensive research.
I started being interested in family history when I had a long talk with my grandmother when I was about 20, and I recorded everything on paper. I knew about my mother's family. I also knew from my father and my paternal grandmother about his family.
For heir hunter Daniel, Malcolm was a welcome mine of information.
It's always great when someone has a family tree that we can compare against our own and make sure that we've done the right thing, but also in case he has any additional information to supplement what we've already done. So it was great to find Malcolm and to go and see him and talk to him.
As well as knowledge about his wider family, Malcolm also has early memories of his cousin, Hazel.
Up to the age of around 20 or so, we'd had regular family contact. Hazel was always protected as a child by her parents, and she was treated as a gift which had to be treasured and spoiled. Hazel was certainly 6 foot tall. In fact, the story goes, and I don't know whether this is true, that at one time she had 4 inches cut from her upper leg on both sides in order to be not quite so tall. If she'd been born these days, she would have found plenty of boys over 6 foot. But at the time, in the 40s, being that tall was very unusual for a woman.
Malcolm tried to keep in touch with his cousin as they grew older.
When we proposed to visit Hazel, she was very reticent about what I would expect on arrival. And we found that she'd been living in a state of chaos. I feel very sad that Hazel died alone, without anybody with her of the family, and that we didn't know anything about it. I have a feeling that Hazel had got into the habit of being a loner. Perhaps that explains why she didn't ask for help.
But more about Hazel is revealed as Malcolm delves deeper into her life.
I've got an interesting letter here from 10 Downing Street and signed by Harold Wilson.
Heir hunters track down thousands of rightful beneficiaries every year, but not all cases are cracked. There are thousands of estates on the Treasury's unclaimed list that have eluded the heir hunters and remain unsolved. And every week, more names are published. If you want to know if you could be in line to inherit an unclaimed estate, go to www.gov.uk and search for Bonaventia and click on Unclaimed Estates lists. Do you recognise a name on the list? Could it be a long-lost family member? If so, you could be in line for a windfall.
To claim an estate of someone who's died intestate, you need to trace your relationship in a direct line from the deceased person's grandparent. They need to supply us with certificates of birth, death and marriage and identity documents as well.
As well as the deceased person's name, there will be other bits of information on the list that can help you work out a family connection. For example, the year of their birth. Often the town they were born in and the place of death is published. Sometimes details of their spouse and the place of their marriage are given. All of this can give you clues to a long-lost relative and a potential claim of inheritance.
When considering a claim for an estate, it's very important that a person puts forward a very good case, and it's all based on the evidence. What we need are the birth, death, marriage certificates, perhaps something on adoption, and then we consider the evidence very carefully.
If an estate is left unclaimed for 12 years, all the money left behind will eventually go into government funds. The heir hunters had been chasing down heirs on the case of Hazel Murgatroyd, who died in 2012. So far, the team had cracked Hazel's father Maurice's side of the family, tracing heirs from the descendants of his 9 brothers and sisters. They then focused on solving Hazel's mother's side of the family.
Our researchers on that side were able to confirm that the deceased mother was an only child.
This meant that Hazel's estimated £150,000 to £160,000 estate would be divided between the 27 heirs on her father's side of the family. Today, heir Malcolm and his brother Trevor are meeting up to look through one of the many boxes of belongings that came out of Hazel's house.
I've come filled with curiosity because I'm hoping to find out more about a long-lost cousin in some respects, a cousin I scarcely ever knew, full of mystery and piecing together a life. From what Malcolm's told me, it sounds most interesting, and I'm really looking forward to finding out more today.
The box contains photographs of Hazel's life and photographs of her parents and her grandparents, and an awful lot of pictures of her car. She was probably more fond of her car than anything else. You can see from this photo that Hazel is very tall.
Yeah, that's right.
She's standing between her parents, Maud and Maurice, and she's half a head taller than them.
I remember on one of the occasions when we were visiting, and Hazel was lined up against you to see who was the tallest. I mean, we always thought you were enormous. I mean, 6 foot. I mean, that was considered to be an unheard of height. And yet Hazel actually was taller than you. In fact, it was not perhaps very flattering from Hazel's point of view to be pointed out that
she was taller than me.
Family get-togethers seemed to be when the cousins had their best chance of getting to know each other.
How I remember Hazel was as a reserved, diffident lady, much my senior, of course, by, 6 years anyway. Her height, of course, made it a little bit awkward to be with her. That would explain why she became, why she never got married. Maybe she couldn't form relationships easily. Who knows?
I've got an interesting letter here. It's addressed to a PD Nairn from 10 Downing Street and signed by Harold Wilson.
And Wilson, no less.
It's, Dear Pat, now that the progress of renegotiation has been concluded, I should like to express my thanks to you and your team, etc., etc. And on the second sheet, one of the people there is Miss H. Murgatroyd.
Oh, right, so she's part of a team, clearly.
So Hazel was one of 29 people in a team working.
In the civil service?
In the civil service.
Yes, I wonder what. It doesn't, of course, give any details about the exact contribution they made, but an expression of gratitude for the efforts that have been made.
The events the letter refers to were, in fact, the renegotiation of Britain's involvement in the EEC. It was carried out in 1975 under the leadership of Labour Prime Minister Harold Wilson. At that time, Hazel was working as a civil servant and played a part in the proceedings.
Britain joined the European Community in 1973 under the Europhile Prime Minister Edward Heath, one of the few Europhile Prime Ministers Britain's had. Britain joined principally because it was seen in the 1960s that the British economy was lagging somewhat behind the continental economies as a result of their creation of the European Community. So Britain's political elites, but also in the media and elsewhere, saw that joining the community could be a remedy for some of Britain's economic deficiencies in the 1960s and 1970s.
But right from those early days, Britain's membership of the EEC was a political hot potato. Public opinion was sorely divided as to the advantages of being part of an economically united Europe. Until finally, a public vote was put on the political agenda by a newly elected government.
The 1975 referendum was held by Harold Wilson, and it was a Labour Party manifesto commitment from the 1974 election to renegotiate the terms of entry and then put those terms of entry to the British people in the form of an in-out referendum. The management of that referendum was crucial for Wilson, both within the Labour Party and for him personally as Prime Minister.
Harold Wilson was determined that his pro-European stance would win the day, and worked closely with committees of both politicians and civil servants, including Hazel, who were debating the issues.
It's likely Hazel would have been working alongside civil servants and diplomats who went on to be leading exponents of British European policy in Brussels.
On the 6th of June 1975, the British public finally went to the polls to have their say. They voted 2/3 to 1/3 in favour of staying in the EEC.
So this was a triumph for Harold Wilson. A, it kept Britain in the European community, which he saw as an economic necessity, and B, it kept the Labour Party united at a time when it could have fallen apart over a very contentious question. Harold Wilson had been a civil servant during World War II, and it's well known that he always had strong affinities with the civil service, and he regarded their work particularly highly. And so the kind of letter that Hazel received would have been recognition by Harold Wilson for the job that she and the other committee members did in helping put his European case to the British people.
Hazel spent many years working as a civil servant, and her cousins and heirs, Malcolm and Trevor, are only now getting an insight into her life.
It's extraordinary. Well, we've only touched the tip of the iceberg here, but what is extraordinary already is the things I didn't know about Hazel. And yet these photos tell so much, and yet hide so much. It'd be lovely to get behind the scenes and discover the mysteries, the things we don't know yet. Maybe they'll come to light as we go further down the box.
But for today, the brothers have uncovered enough to think about, particularly Trevor.
There were sad moments looking at some of the photographs because I realised that here was a person in Hazel that I'd never really got to know, and I could have made more effort to get to know her, there's no doubt about it. As a cousin, I was perhaps a bit of a failure. OK, that goes both ways, but even so, I might have made more effort over the years, and I get the impression that she's a person with whom I might have got on well. I really would like to find out more. It has aroused my curiosity.
In the London offices of Fraser & Fraser, it's day 2 of the hunt for heirs to the estate of June Franklin.
When we first started it, the Franklin case was a nice little 2-piece of paper job. Now it's spread out and just taken over the whole desk.
The team have established that June's father, Arthur, was one of 10 children. When June was born in 1919, he was working as an engineer at the Royal Chatham Docks, where he had served during the First World War.
Royal Dockyard Chatham was the only shipbuilding centre on the east coast of the country at the turn of the 20th century, and the Navy's only sort of major ship repair centre as well. It was vital to be able to repair submarines and also refit large destroyers coming in and cruisers as well.
Arthur's role as an engineer just before and during World War I would have been vital in the building and completing of warships for the Royal Navy.
Arthur would have started out engaged in fitting engines and repairing the engines on board ships. So it meant crawling into small dark spaces and making sure it was all connected and running properly. As his experience grew and his knowledge grew, he would move towards the chargeman level, which is effectively a foreman responsible from a gang of around about 20 or so men, and making sure that they're working properly and doing their jobs. As he progressed into an inspector, he would have then had probably around about 3 or 4 gangs under his responsibility, so around about 3 foremen plus 20 or so guys in each gang.
The First World War was one of the most challenging times in the dockyard's history. Around a dozen ships were built and crucial repairs to the existing fleet carried out, both vital to keeping the Royal Navy afloat and fighting the war at sea.
Arthur and his colleagues would have seen a lot of horrific damage for the first time from sea mines and torpedoes. It was the first time that they'd actually been used. There would have been a lot of twisted metal, the bows would have been ripped off, sterns could have been sheared off, engines would have been blown to pieces, and in between all of that twisted metal and wreckage, there may well have been men who were killed in action as well. So it would have been quite gory and horrific. These ships were towed into the dockyard, and Arthur would have been, as a chargeman then and an inspector, would have been sent down to see what they could do to repair the engines and make it sea fit and ready again for active service as soon as possible.
And it seems the men faced danger in the dock as well as on the high seas.
One of the risks of being on a warship was the potential for spontaneous combustion or explosion, and indeed there were several incidences. The worst was in 1917 in July, when HMS Vanguard just suddenly exploded and killed her entire crew of 804 men. Whilst there's a lot of conspiracy theories behind it, the likelihood is that there may have been a simple spark or something near the magazines that the doors may not have been closed, that may have caused the ammunition just to go up. And this was a sort of occupational hazard throughout the Navy at the time.
Arthur would have been part of a close-knit, expanding workforce.
At the end of the First World War, the dockyard had up towards 12,000 men and women working on site. As it turned into peacetime operations, there would have been mass layoffs because they no longer needed to keep such a workforce. Arthur, in his position, may well have been saved because of his experience and his understanding and his knowledge. Lesser trained workers would have, unfortunately, lost their jobs.
Although historical archive records have helped build a picture of June's father, the heir hunters are finding the rest of the family harder to pin down.
If they move around a lot and they're born so early on, then it's really hard to find out whether it's the right family or not, you know. The people that you're talking to are not going to know about their grandparents' families necessarily.
They've had to go down the generations until they've found distant cousins on both June's mother's and father's sides. With no luck contacting beneficiaries on the phone, Mike has sent travelling researcher Dave Hadley out on the road to see if he can locate them in person. Dave is tracking down a cousin on June's mother's side of the family.
Best case scenario is that he give us some information about his brothers and sisters and also sign an agreement with us, and the worst case scenario is that the competition have already got there before me.
Heirs can play an important role in helping to confirm the team's research and to fill in any gaps in the family trees. But if Dave doesn't manage to sign up any heirs, all the team's work is for nothing. And after a brief meeting, it's time for him to hit the road again.
Well, that was a great result. I've just seen the heir. He's confirmed all the information that we've got. He's given me quite a bit of information about his brothers and sisters, and he's agreed to sign an agreement with us. So, 1 down, 6 to go.
Following directions he's just been given, Dave is on his way to another cousin on June's mother's side, who fortunately lives very nearby.
There's no reply at the address, and I can't confirm that she lives there, so I'm going to ring the office now and see if they can do a little bit of research.
Dave gets through to case manager Mike Powell and explains where he is.
Yeah, that's the one I've been knocking at. There's no reply. I don't know whether you want to get a letter out to her. I'll leave an inquiry letter through the letterbox. I've got a telephone number, but, you know, if there's no reply at the door, so there's not much point in ringing the number.
Mike has been able to confirm this cousin and that Dave is at the right address. Dave leaves a note, and then it's back on the road to the next name on his list. A cousin once removed, again on June's mother's side.
Right, well, I've just had an interview with her, a nice lady. She's confirmed that she is an heir to our deceased. She's quite elderly, so I've left an agreement with her so that she can discuss it with her daughter. She's given us quite a bit of information, but it will help us to confirm the research we've got is correct.
So after this last-minute success, Dave is ready to go home.
I've had quite a successful day. I've managed to see 2 heirs and spoken to a 3rd one, located a 4th one, and I've just got a couple more to see in Tonbridge tomorrow. So, all in all, it's been a good day.
The following day, Mike Powell is on leave, so it's up to fellow manager Joe to pick up where he left off.
We've just spoken to Dave Hadley to see where he'll be going today, to make sure that everyone is seen who can be seen, to keep everything up to date.
Since yesterday, the team in the office have managed to find several more names to add to Dave's ever-expanding list.
I doubt that I'm going to be able to get round to all of them today, but I'll do as many as I can.
He's on his way to a daughter of one of June's cousins.
Right, well, there's no answer at the address. I know that they've sent a letter out to her, so I'm not going to bother putting anything through the door.
Dave's hoping to have better luck with the next heir on his list, who's a cousin once removed.
Finding a parking space, yeah, it's a nightmare. Yet again, no reply. I'm starting to run out of time now, so on to the next one. I would hope to have somebody signed up by now, but you can just never tell.
He has high hopes of signing up the next potential heir, a cousin on June's father's side of the family, but he's hit a snag.
Oh, that road's closed as well. Oh, wow. How do you get into Pembury?
Dave finally finds a way through, and after arriving at the house and introducing himself to potential heir Karen Hunt,
Thank you, please come in.
Thank you very much.
he gets down to business.
Now, did you get our letter today?
I did, I got it this morning, yes.
OK. Have you had a chance to read it or
I have
not?
read through it, yes.
I'll ask you a few questions. It will save you then having to fill in that questionnaire.
Right, OK, yes.
It'll confirm that we've got the right person. How many children did your parents have, including you?
There's four girls.
4 girls. Was your father married more than once?
No.
And was your mother married more than once?
No.
Dave is able to confirm the team's research and is satisfied that Karen is an heir.
It's a very unusual thing. I mean, you hear of it happening to other people, that they get in contact with people saying there's relatives that have left them money, but you obviously don't ever think it's going to happen to you. It's strange knowing that there's somebody out there that you didn't really know that you were related to, and nice to know that at the end of it we'll get a nice extra bonus of a little bit of money or something, which is really nice.
Well, I'm really pleased with that. She's given me some information, which is really useful, but more importantly, she's agreed for us to help her with her claim and has signed an agreement with us. So I'm really pleased with the result, and I think now it's time for a well-earned lunch.
It's been a successful visit for Dave, and a few weeks later, the team have finally been able to wrap up all their research.
This was quite a complicated case for us due to the fact that there was so many people who looked to be involved, because we knew from both sides of the family there's going to be quite a few aunts and uncles. We've managed to come down through quite a lot of generations to finally find 40 beneficiaries who look to inherit about £63,000 between them. So it was a nice one for us to sort out for them.
I think it makes you realise with a family that you don't see that often that you really should make more of an effort.
Just the stairs and